Hey guys, this is like part 2 of religion versus relationship, and a thought that came to mind is, as Christians, there is a big difference between religious doctrine and a genuine relationship with Jesus, and going on with a lot of stereotypes. I think for some people, when you think of church, you may think, okay, a list of, I can't, there's like this big misconception that you can't come to church as you are, and you have to have it all together. And it's like, no, it's complete opposite. Like, Jesus says, come as you are. I mean, in the Bible, he sat with all sorts of people, homeless people, prostitutes, tax collectors. He sat with all the people that were like the outcasts. So to think that you have to be this perfect, shiny person is so contradictory to to what being a Christian means. And a couple of things I was thinking about is, so whether you believe it or not, but there is a spiritual realm amongst us, and the enemy plays a huge part on twisting the truth about how this world was intended, and about God and about Jesus. And there's lots of lies that he tells, but the two biggest lies and misconceptions that the enemy tells, that's very common, is one, very obviously, you hear a lot, the enemy will convince you that God is not real and that he does not exist, because he is threatened. He is threatened that when you find out the truth, then he's lost his grasp on you, basically, because the enemy is control. And if he can control your views, your mindset through what the world tells you, he will do it. And he's very clever at that. At the end of the day, he used to be an angel, and obviously he was a fallen angel after that. And the second lie he will tell you is that even if God is real, he isn't good and he doesn't care. That's the two main things I've witnessed and I hear a lot. And yeah, those are the two lies that, if you believe in those lies, it makes sense why some of you would feel the way you feel about God. But here's the thing, you can't base your judgment and character on God by what you see happening in the world, and by what others tell you, and by your experiences from other people. Because if you base your judgment and character of God on the things you see in this life, the things that you feel from other people, and the things that get taught, that, because we all have influence, there's influence everywhere. So growing up, we're influenced by our environment, we're influenced by everything. And the danger with that is, it's a very unsteady, it's very unsteady to have that opinion, because it's come from something that's not very solid, which is why we have the Bible, which is why we have the Word of God to tell us all the characteristics of who he is. The whole point of the Bible is to teach us about him and the world, and because honestly, when you read the Bible, like, some of you haven't even read the Bible, so it's really hard. You can't base your opinion of a fantasy fact that you've just created in your mind. And that's the thing, as soon as you do that, the enemy loves that, because he'll play into that, where having a solid, firm foundation of a written text that talks to you about God's character will change your perspective to who God is, because that's the truth. It's in the word. And the biggest things I think that make some of you feel like, well, let's start off with one of the lies being that even if you do think God is real and he exists, and you think he doesn't care and he doesn't love you and he doesn't care about the world, let's start off with that lie. A lot of the time, I believe that comes from the fact that either you've had a bad experience, you've gone through trials in life which have affected you, and think, oh, if God was so loving, why did this happen to me? And that comes under how, there's so much suffering. Unfortunately, we see so much suffering around the world, and I hear that a lot, like, well, if God is so great, why does all this suffering happen? And I get it. That is like a huge thing to even comprehend, and this is why we need the Bible to tell us, why these things happen. And we're not going to know all the answers. We're never fully going to understand why things happen, but we can read the truth in the word, because God can't contradict his word. Like, what is written is true about him. Whether you feel it or believe it, the truth still stands as it is. And I think a lot of the time with suffering, it does say in the Bible, you will face suffering and hard times. So he's not hiding that from us. It's not, oh, look, surprise, you're going through some suffering and I'm just gonna, and I think people think he's looking down, just ignoring everything, allowing us to go through it all, which is not the case, because actually, ironically, anyone that knows suffering the most would be Jesus. Without Jesus dying on the cross, there would be no call to our faith, because him being a human living sacrifice, being tortured for every sin that we had ever done, because the world is broken. People were hurting each other back years and years ago. There was so much war. You think it's bad now, but back then there was so much chaos, so much war, so much destruction, so much love that was manipulated and distorted, and we were all kind of slowly killing each other because of our own selfish desires, right? And so there needed to be a sacrifice. There's always a sacrifice for wrongdoing. When you think about the law, when you think about the police and why they're here, there's reasons why we're not allowed to steal and murder, and you have to go to prison because, well, one, for its safety, but there's always punishment to the things, the bad choices you make. There's always there's always a consequence. There's always a consequence to sin. And I'm sorry, but whether you believe in God or not, it's around you. You can't argue with that. There's a consequence to doing something like stealing or murdering someone. So there has to be some order of rules to follow. And in my other video, I was saying how relationship with God, being a Christian isn't based on religion, and religion is all about rules and regulations. And at the end of the day, what I meant was, so God accepts and loves you as you are. You don't have to earn that. There's not work. We can't earn it by doing good work, being a good person. That's just a load of rubbish. However,